Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Flight 472 to New York had barely left Miami when tension rose in the cabin. The passengers, tired and impatient, had no idea that the incident about to unfold would leave its mark on everyone present that day. 17-year-old Lena Harper sat by the window, trying to concentrate on her book. Her headphones played music, a bubble of safety in a world where she still felt eyes upon her. She hadn't done anything wrong, nothing illegal, yet her heart raced when an authoritative voice boomed behind her. "Miss Harper, you must get off this plane immediately." Lena looked up and saw Madame Carlyle, the company's security agent, her features tense and her gaze cold. Her tone brooked no argument. The other passengers turned towards them, some shocked, others indifferent. I don't understand, I have a reserved seat," Lena stammered, fear rising in her chest. But Officer Carlyle didn't flinch. "You can't travel on this flight." Lena's face fell. How could she be treated like this, simply because she was black? The humiliation was already evident in the eyes of the passengers around them. A few indignant murmurs could be heard, but no one approached. Then a deep, measured voice rose from behind the officer. "I don't think you know who you're talking to." They all turned to see David Harper, Lena's father, walk down the center aisle. Tall and elegant, he exuded an aura of power. None of the passengers knew him, but something about his posture made Mrs. Carlyle take a step back. David didn't shout, he didn't threaten. He observed the officer with implacable calm, each word measured like a silent blow. "You are about to make a grave mistake. Not only are you humiliating my daughter, but you are underestimating the person standing behind her." An icy silence fell. Agent Carlyle felt a shiver run down her spine. She didn't yet know that this simple theft would become the scene of a reversal she could never have imagined, and that her apparent authority would crumble before the invisible but real power of David Harper. The security guard, Ms. Carlyle, clenched her fists behind her back. She didn't like being spoken to like that, especially by a stranger who looked like he'd stepped straight out of a Power and Elegance magazine. Yet, something in David Harper's gaze paralyzed her. "Please calm down and let me do my job," she said, attempting to regain control. "Your job?" David replied in an icy voice. "Humiliating an innocent young girl is not your job. It's an injustice, and you will bear the responsibility for it." Lena, trembling but grateful, stayed behind her father. Her eyes shone with both fear and anger. She had never seen her father intervene like this, and yet, every word he spoke reassured her. The passengers whispered, some discreetly taking photos with their phones, others staring, frozen, at the scene unfolding before them. Ms. Carlyle felt her position weakening. She was dealing with an invisible but undeniable authority figure. "You really think you can intimidate me?" she hissed, attempting to regain her controlling posture. David Harper took a step forward, measuring each movement. "You don't intimidate me. You're simply naive if you think nobody cares about what you're doing." At that precise moment, Lena felt a wave of courage wash over her. "Dad, let me speak," she said softly. All eyes turned to her. Her voice trembled slightly, but it didn't falter. "I haven't broken any rules. I'm here to take this flight, like everyone else. You can't remove me from the plane without a valid reason." A murmur of support rippled through the cabin. Several passengers exchanged disapproving glances at Agent Carlyle. Her apparent power was beginning to crumble under the weight of truth and Lena's courage. David Harper placed a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder and declared in a firm voice, "Very well. If you continue down this path, I guarantee you will regret this choice." Mrs. Carlyle's face hardened. She knew she had to act quickly to try and salvage her credibility. But she didn't yet know that David Harper wasn't just a protective father. What he was about to do would transform this incident into a full-blown scandal that no one on board would ever forget. The atmosphere in the cabin was electric. The passengers' murmurs had turned into a controlled hubbub, each aware that something important was about to happen. Madame Carlyle, feeling her authority waver, took a deep breath. I can't let this incident turn into a mess, she stammered, trying to regain control. You must get out, young lady. David Harper didn't move an inch. He crossed his arms and stared at the officer with an intensity that sent shivers down the spines of several passengers. Then, in an icy tone, he declared, I don't think you understand the situation. Not only are you humiliating my daughter, but you will now suffer the consequences of your actions. At that moment, Lena felt her heart pound, but she understood that her father was about to change the course of this confrontation. David discreetly took out his phone and sent a quick message. A few seconds later, a cell phone vibrated in the cockpit. The flight captain, alerted, entered the central aisle. Mr. Harper, he said, visibly surprised by the man's presence in his cabin. What's going on? David Harper calmly replied, My plane is carrying an innocent passenger who is being harassed by your security officer. I ask you to intervene immediately before this situation escalates. The captain exchanged a glance with his crew and gestured for Mrs. Carlyle to step back. The tension was palpable. The passengers held their breath, some whispering, This is unbelievable. But David didn't stop there. He then pulled an official document from his pocket, a warrant revealing his influence in the highest spheres of aeronautics and justice, powerful enough to make any unjustified action on board that plane an instant public affair. Mrs. Carlyle paled. She finally understood that beneath the guise of a simple, protective father hid a man capable of ruining her career in minutes. She tried to speak, but no words came out of her mouth. Lena, who witnessed the scene, felt a wave of relief mixed with admiration. Her father had not only protected her, but he had turned around a seemingly hopeless situation. The other passengers, now aware of the extent of David Harper's power, looked at the security agent with a mixture of judgment and silent contempt. Calm gradually returned to the cabin. Mrs. Carlyle, humiliated, withdrew to a corner, while David Harper turned to his daughter and said, You have nothing to fear now. Everything will be all right. But behind this apparent resolve, a question remained: would Madame Carlyle accept her defeat, or would she attempt one last desperate move to save her honor? A few minutes had passed since David Harper's intervention, but Madame Carlyle hadn't left Lena's thoughts. The agent, humiliated in front of the entire booth, was seething with rage and searching for a way to regain control of the situation. As the plane flew over the Carolina coast, Ms. Carlyle discreetly approached a window, phone in hand. She sent a message to a superior, exaggerating the situation and requesting immediate intervention to restore order. David, still by Lena's side, sensed something. His instincts had never failed him. He picked up his phone and, with a simple tap, contacted a former colleague in the aeronautics and federal authorities. A few minutes later, a message arrived directly on the captain's tablet: Any action against Lena Harper will be considered a serious incident and will be subject to a federal investigation. The captain looked up and observed Mrs. Carlyle, who then understood that this time her superiors were going to question her, and that her lie wouldn't hold up. The passengers, silent witnesses to the scene, began to murmur phrases like, "She thought she could get away with it," and "What a lesson." But David Harper didn't just want to protect his daughter, he wanted justice. He calmly addressed the officer. "You chose to humiliate an innocent young girl and to believe you were above the law. Today, your actions have visible and immediate consequences." Lena, her eyes shining, felt an immense sense of pride. Her father was not only defending her, he was making it clear to everyone on board that the power of intimidation and racism would not be tolerated. Ms. Carlyle, now speechless, felt her world crumble. The passengers, who had initially watched the scene with fear or indifference, were now quietly applauding Lena's courage and David's composure. The situation had completely reversed. The agent was now alone, facing the consequences of her actions, and the plane, once a scene of humiliation, had become a place where justice and truth had prevailed. As the flight continued, David placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder and whispered, "Remember this, no one can ever diminish you as long as you remain true to who you are." Lena smiled, her heart light, knowing that she had just experienced a moment that would forever change her perception of the world and of her father's strength. The plane began its descent toward New York, and the tension that had filled the cabin gradually transformed into a mixture of relief and fascination. Each passenger had followed the confrontation with a mixture of fear, admiration, and disbelief. Miss Carlyle, seated at the end of the aisle, was silent. Her tense face betrayed humiliation and anger. She knew she couldn't undo what had just happened. The messages and warnings the captain had received guaranteed that his career would be severely damaged. She had thought she could humiliate Lena Harper with impunity, but she hadn't realized how much she had underestimated David Harper's power and influence. David leaned towards his daughter and whispered, "Breathe, Lena. It's all over now." Lena nodded, a smile mixed with fatigue and pride lighting up her face. She had witnessed her father's courage and his ability to transform a moment of humiliation into triumph. The captain then announced the imminent landing and added, with a smile, "Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to emphasize the courage and dignity shown by this young passenger today. Thank you to Mr. Harper for his intervention." A few passengers stood up and applauded Lena and her father. The wave of support warmed the young girl and reinforced her belief that truth and courage always triumph in the end. Realizing the situation was now irreversible, Miss Carlyle reluctantly rose and left the plane in full view of everyone. The humiliation was complete, but she knew she had no one to blame but her own choices. David took his daughter's hand and squeezed it gently. "Never forget this, Lena, there will always be times when you face injustice. But what matters is staying true to yourself and never being afraid to stand up for yourself." Lena felt a profound emotion wash over her. This flight, which had begun as a terrifying experience, had transformed into a memorable life lesson, and she knew she would never forget it. As the plane touched down smoothly, Lena looked around, each face expressing respect and admiration. For the first time, she understood that dignity, courage, and family love were forces capable of changing even the most desperate situations. And in the silence that followed the landing, a new chapter of her life began, filled with confidence, strength, and certainty. No one, ever, could diminish her.